When they finally matched the remains found in a torched home to 19-year-old Robin West, her murderer had already claimed his second target. Then came a third, followed by a fourth, a 15-year-old girl who had just arrived in the States. 4 women, 4 vacant properties, 4 families pleading for assistance. In every single instance, the killer left the exact same digital trail behind him. The same cell number, the identical dating app account, the very same vehicle. Investigators actually brought him in for questioning on 2 separate occasions, yet he walked out a free man both times. It ultimately required a heartbroken sibling to end his spree by setting up a bogus dating account and baiting him to a Panera Bread while officers looked on from the shadows. We are sharing the tale of the women the justice system failed to shield and the relatives who vowed to keep their memories alive. If these kinds of narratives resonate with you, go ahead and smash that subscribe button immediately. We shine a light on the investigations the mainstream news overlooks, and we rely on your backing to continue sharing them. Leave a comment down there and tell me what you think. Did this specific case ever cross your radar? The majority of folks have no clue about it, which is precisely why we need to talk about it. New Jersey. Robin West was just 19 years of age. Her brother nicknamed her Raw. To her inner circle, she was a sister, she was kin, she was a twin. Over at the Sanctuary Church of the Open Door in West Philadelphia, she was the one directing the Sunday choir. Robin possessed a massive personality, full of energy, high spirits, and constant laughter. Her 20th birthday was fast approaching on September 5th. She had already uploaded pictures to Facebook showing off the white gown she intended to rock. She was counting down the seconds to celebrate. By the end of August 2016, Robin and her pal Pernicia traveled from Philadelphia over to New Jersey. They booked a room at a cheap motel. Once a couple of nights passed, their funds dried up, so they devised a strategy to earn some quick cash. On the evening of August 31st, Robin and Pernicia ended up strolling around New York Avenue in Newark, an area riddled with empty buildings. Robin was dressed in a red Nike cap, a black lace top, and matching black shorts. They had barely been standing there when a silver sedan rolled up on them. The man behind the wheel offered cash in exchange for intimacy. Pernicia moved fast, punching the tag digits into her device and hitting save. Right before the vehicle sped off, she leaned inside and warned him, "You watch out for my sister because I love that girl." That sentence ended up being the final thing she ever said to a living Robin since she hopped in that ride and vanished. By the following day, Pernicia could not reach her at all. She dialed the authorities instantly, provided the license plate sequence, and described exactly who drove off with Robin. Yet despite having those details, the official reaction was sluggish. What remained unknown to everyone was that merely hours after Robin entered that vehicle, fire crews in Orange rushed to a blaze on Lakeside Avenue. Once they breached the interior, they discovered human remains. The flames had raged with such intensity that one detective later described it as the most decimated corpse he had ever come across. Those remains lay there nameless for days on end while Robin's relatives sat around waiting for any news. On September 7th, a full week after Robin vanished, an investigator finally bothered to run that tag. It traced back to a local guy from Orange, New Jersey named Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Officers presented him with a photograph of Robin. Wheeler Weaver confessed he was with her that evening, claiming he gave her a lift, recommended she crash in a vacant property, and left her there. He even took the cops to see the specific empty building. However, it was not the same structure that had gone up in flames. Since they lacked hard physical proof connecting him to her vanishing right then, Wheeler Weaver was allowed to leave the station a free man. On September 13th, over 2 weeks post-fire, DNA analysis verified the victim was indeed Robin West. Her loved ones were absolutely shattered. That white birthday gown would never get its debut, yet the detectives still had zero clue this was linked to a much bigger picture. They were oblivious to the fact that this was just the start. Let that sink in for a moment. The authorities possessed the license plate number, they questioned the prime suspect, and simply let him stroll out the door. Leave a comment down below. How would you have handled things if you were the one working this file? Because the events that follow are about to make your blood boil. As Robin's relatives tried to cope with their loss, a different family, only a few miles away, was starting their own personal hell. October 22nd, 2016. Joanne Brown was 33 years of age. Her folks knew her affectionately as Billy Joe. She battled with mental health challenges and relied on street work to get by, yet her relatives never stopped hoping she would find a better path. That specific afternoon, Joanne was hanging out in Newark with some buddies near the Popeyes on Avon Avenue. Typically, Joanne stuck to a strict routine. Anytime she took off with a stranger, she made sure to ring her friend Amina. She would describe her company, her destination, and her estimated return time. It was her safety net. However, on that particular afternoon, a different acquaintance had an emergency and needed to make a call. Joanne let her borrow the phone. A short time later, a vehicle rolled up. Joanne exchanged a few quick words with the person behind the wheel and hopped in. Since she didn't have her mobile, she couldn't do her standard check-in. But shortly after, near 1:30 p.m., she used the stranger's device to dial Amina. It was a short conversation, just to let her know she was with a companion and would update her later. She never rang back. At 3 to 9 p.m., Amina got a buzz. The ID matched the number Joanne used earlier. She answered on the first ring. "Is that you, London?" she questioned. Dead air. Suddenly, the line went dead. Amina dialed the number repeatedly. Every attempt went to voicemail without a response. Once she checked every possible spot with zero trace of Joanne, Amina filed an official missing persons report. However, Joanne's past became a hurdle. The cops focused on her record and personal battles. Rather than panicking, they brushed it off as if she'd just taken off on her own accord. They didn't organize parties, alert the media, or knock on doors. Meanwhile, her remains were sitting in a vacant property on Highland Avenue, undiscovered. You should be furious reading this. It's an outrage. These ladies were owed so much more. Help us out by smashing the thumbs up and following the channel. We refuse to let these cases fade away. Leave a reply explaining why you believe situations like Joanne's are overlooked. Let's start a discussion. As Joanne's circle frantically dialed around looking for her, a different girl nearby was unknowingly walking into the exact same danger. 20-year-old Sarah Butler was raised in Montclair, New Jersey, surrounded by a tight-knit clan, a talented dancer with a sharp mind and big dreams. Back in 2016, she was a second-year psych major at New Jersey City University. Once she settled into the dorms, though, Sarah had a hard time bonding with people. She was frequently isolated. November 2016. The turkey dinner was right around the corner. On the initial day of the holiday recess, Sarah's mother headed to Jersey City to get her. Sarah was thrilled to be heading back to her childhood house. That night, Sarah requested the keys to her parents' blue Dodge van. Her hair was styled up high, featuring a distinct red weave. On her way out, she mentioned she was hanging out with a pal. Sarah was a trustworthy kid. She never missed a curfew. However, that specific evening, Sarah failed to return. After she ghosted their messages, the family went to the authorities and started hunting for her themselves. Neighbors pitched in, printed posters, and checked houses. Eventually, an acquaintance spotted the van. It was dumped in the rear of a defunct plant. Law enforcement showed up. Sarah's sibling and her buddy Lima also rushed over. Cops started sweeping the car, yet they missed the obvious clue. The sister spotted it immediately, a tiny speck of crimson on the pavement by the door. A piece of red weave, identical to the style Sarah was rocking. Lima tracked her gaze before she could say a word. Then Lima let out a shriek. Discovering that hairpiece shifted the entire case. The sister and Lima realized they couldn't just idly hope for news, so they kicked off their own detective work. They raced back to the house and booted up Sarah's computer. Lima had the login code. They combed through her inbox and social media, hunting for clues about her whereabouts. Samantha, another pal, came to help. Next, they accessed her tagged profile. That was a trendy hookup site back in the 2010s. It was simple for people to mask who they were with bogus accounts. Immediately, they spotted a fresh chat log, a back and forth with a handle called Lil Yacht Rock. This was among the final contacts Sarah made prior to vanishing. Samantha set up a fresh account with a stolen pic and a pseudonym. She shot Lil Yacht Rock a quick like. Then they sat back. Before we continue, verify that you are following the page. The upcoming details are shocking, so leave a remark. Was it smart for the family to take matters into their own hands, or should they have relied on the cops? Share your opinion. For the following couple of days, the girls basically camped out at the Montclair station. They were right there in the precinct on November 26th when a notification popped up. Lil Yacht Rock had replied. He proposed payment for intimacy, introduced himself as Taj, and demanded an immediate meetup. The texts gave off a sinister vibe. When things moved to a voice chat, Samantha activated the speakerphone. The sister whipped out her mobile and silently taped the whole discussion. While standing right in the precinct, they were solving the case solo. Samantha set up a rendezvous at a local Panera Bread in Montclair, barely a mile away. As soon as the line went dead, the girls ran to the detectives and informed them about the sting. A team of 2 investigators was dispatched to the rendezvous point. The moment the figure from the tag profile stepped into the Panera, the investigators approached him. He gave his name as Khalil Wheeler Weaver, the same guy interviewed months back regarding Robin West's disappearance. He didn't put up a fight, just agreed to head down to headquarters with them. At that stage, investigators were still working a missing persons case for Sarah. They had no clue she had already lost her life. The interview went unrecorded. He wasn't in cuffs. He was at liberty to walk out the door whenever he pleased. Once inside the precinct, he copped to being the user behind that specific handle, Lil Yacht Rock. He claimed he set up the account with an email address the investigators would definitely remember, pimpkillerghost@yahoo.com. When the topic turned to Sarah, he spun a yarn, claimed he reached out because he knew her face from New Jersey City University, asserted he hit her up to find out if she was using the app to quote-unquote solicit cash for sexual favors. He stated Sarah came by to pick him up. They just cruised around for a while. She supposedly scooped up another guy before dropping him off at roughly 8:17 p.m. He swore that was the last time he ever laid eyes on her. At that specific point, the investigators viewed him merely as a witness, not a threat or a predator. December 1st, 2016. Officers tracing Sarah's device followed the pings to Eagle Rock Reservation, a forest reserve with a view of the New York City skyline. Later that afternoon, search teams combing the grounds discovered something lying just off the main path, a human body. It was a remote spot, well concealed. Before long, the remains were positively identified as 20-year-old Sarah Butler. The post-mortem examination determined the official cause of death was strangulation. On December 5th, 4 days after the discovery of Sarah, a crew of construction workers entered a vacant property on Highland Avenue in Orange. Their job was to fix the roof, but instead they stumbled upon the remains of Joanne Brown, who had vanished back in October. Her body lay on the stair landing. A coat was wrapped tight around her head and throat. Thick tape covered her mouth and jaw. The medical examiner determined her death was caused by mechanical asphyxiation. Digital records revealed that on the day Joanne vanished, the very same number that reached out to Sarah Butler had also dialed. Joanne's friend Amina and Joanne herself on several occasions. Cell tower data pinpointed that phone near the diner where she was last spotted and later at the vacant house where her remains were recovered. And the pattern didn't stop with Joanne. Detectives traced those digital breadcrumbs back even further to 19-year-old Robin West. Wheeler Weaver had been present the entire time, long before Sarah and before Joanne. He owned the vehicle Robin stepped into that evening. Authorities had actually interviewed him previously. Yet even after they identified her remains, he wasn't flagged as a suspect or investigated further. He just carried on with his lethal spree. If not for the intervention of Sarah's sister and her circle of friends, there is no telling how long this would have continued. Once investigators aligned the chronology, the call logs, the travel routes, the victim's final steps, the links were impossible to ignore. 3 women, 3 missing persons cases, 3 extinguished lives, all connected to one individual. With Wheeler Weaver behind bars, investigators mined his digital footprint. Buried within Sarah's device were chat logs revealing she had crossed paths with him days before she went missing. On November 19th, 3 days prior to her disappearance, Sarah and the user behind that tag profile were already communicating. The texts were direct. He asked, "Do you want to make money?" and followed up with, "Sex for money." Sarah's reply was guarded. Finally, she typed back, $500. Sarah insisted he pay her up front. He claimed he would pay up once they arrived at his residence. Then, in a twist that feels chilling in hindsight, Sarah tried to keep things light. She messaged, "You're not a serial killer, right?" LMAO. He typed, "No." Sarah wrote, "Okay, cool." They never linked up that evening. She bailed on the plan, telling him later that she had gotten cold feet. But on November 21st, the day prior to her disappearance, he hit her up again. "What's up?" Sarah said, "Sorry for flaking on the plans." When officers served search warrants on his residence and car, they discovered gloves, dark clothes, several cell phones, and inside his vehicle, zip ties, pepper spray, and a biological cleanup kit. Cell data pinpointed Wheeler Weaver's device near Eagle Rock Reservation between 10:38 p.m. and 12:43 a.m. on November 22nd and 23rd, the very same isolated zone where Sarah's body was recovered. The following morning, a user on his device searched for instructions on removing an Apple ID and factory resetting an iPhone. In 2017, Khalil Wheeler Weaver was indicted on 3 separate counts of first-degree murder. By the time his trial commenced in October 2019, the state had constructed a crushing timeline backed by call logs, security footage, text messages, DNA evidence, and physical clues recovered from within the vacant properties. Yet, the most damning testimony came from the women who survived their encounters with him. One of those survivors was Tiffany Taylor. Tiffany took the stand and recounted to the jury how she met that same man months prior after the deaths of Robin and Joanne, but before Sarah was murdered. She recounted the terrifying details of him assaulting her, holding her captive, threatening to kill her, and her eventual getaway. Her statement provided the jury with a horrifying glimpse into his potential for brutality. The court proceedings continued for 8 weeks. Jurors found Khalil Wheeler Weaver guilty on numerous charges, among them the slayings of Sarah Butler, Robin West, and Joanne Brown, along with the assault and failed homicide of Tiffany Taylor. The judge handed him a prison term of 160 years. However, the saga did not conclude at that point. In 2019, 3 years post-capture, a construction crew found a body in a West Orange forest. Forensics later confirmed the victim was 15-year-old Ma Doumbia. Ma had vanished in October of 2016 during the height of Wheeler Weaver's crime spree. A recent immigrant from Guinea, the teen was residing in Newark with relatives and settling into her fresh start. No harm should have come to her. Yet detectives discovered that, similar to his previous targets, Ma was approached via the tagged application. Electronic records revealed Wheeler Weaver contacted her on October 7th with a financial proposition. A few hours passed before he texted again to share his digits, the identical contact info utilized for the other women. Shortly thereafter, he Googled the route to her housing unit and headed straight for that location. GPS pings tracked a disturbing trajectory from Ma's block to the isolated zone where her body was ultimately found. Similar to the rest, she had died by asphyxiation. On March 31st, 2022, the state indicted Khalil Wheeler Weaver for a 4th homicide involving Ma Doumbia. She was barely 15. Just imagine that. If you haven't heard this before, please repost this clip. We must spread these truths, so drop a thought down under. What is the appropriate punishment for monsters hunting kids? Let me know your stance. By the time this saga concluded, Khalil Wheeler Weaver was found guilty of slaying Robin West and Joanne Brown, plus Sarah Butler, and subsequently accused of ending the life of 15-year-old Ma Doumbia. 4 bright futures stolen way too soon. 4 households abandoned to mourn the beloved daughters, sisters, and companions they lost. And 4 files that never should have needed such agony, coercion, or private detective work to get real attention. Those ladies were not ghosts. People cherished them. Relatives looked for them, pleaded for assistance, and denied that their girls just ran off. Yet repeatedly, authorities dismissed their worries. Police disregarded Robin West due to her being an outsider and because they judged how she lived, despite the fact that her pal provided the cops with a tag number right away. Officials ignored Joanne Brown before looking for her properly. This happened even after a buddy insisted she always phoned home. Ma Doumbia was merely 15, a literal kid. However, her vanishing failed to spark the urgent reaction it warranted. Even Sarah Butler, a university pupil with close relatives, faced hurdles getting swift police movement During that vital initial window, her kin were forced to start their own inquiry. They located the vehicle on their own. They accessed her computer and built a bogus account to entrap the murderer. Their histories were not the main link. Neither was their block, nor their decision. The connection was how authorities handled their missing status. Robin, Joanne, Sarah, and Ma merited safety well before detectives grasped the threat. They were owed the type of immediate focus that typically goes to a specific demographic of casualties. These files show the harm caused when guesses swap with deeds, when prejudice overtakes speed, and when at-risk ladies are neglected. Each life counted. All of them had people expecting their return. Not a single one should have been overlooked by the system. The world needs to hear their narratives. Not due to the guy who harmed them, but for the society that flopped on keeping them safe. And for the relatives who kept battling for what was right when nobody paid attention. Robin West was 19. She adored singing. She was anticipating her 20th year. Joanne Brown was 33. Her folks nicknamed her Billy Joe. Ma Dumbia was 15. She was new to the States. Sarah Butler was 20. She studied psychology and danced. People adored them. We recall them. They were significant. Let Robin West, Joanne Brown, Ma Dumbia, and Sarah Butler sleep eternally. The tales of these ladies are important. If you watch this clip until the finish, I appreciate you respecting their legacy by tuning in. Smash subscribe. If you are new here, post this so others learn who they were. Also, I need your feedback below. Which investigation do you want me to tackle? Which truths remain hidden? Let us maintain this dialogue. We must not forget these ladies. Thanks for viewing. Catch you in the following episode. You better take care of my sister, because I love her to death. That was the final warning she gave the driver right before her best friend slid into the back seat of a silver sedan. She even keyed the tag number into her cell and dialed 911 right then and there. However, law enforcement just didn't move quickly enough. Robin West, Joanne Brown, Sarah Butler, Ma Dumbia, 4 women, 4 families, one system that failed them all. The families did not wait to be saved. They became the investigators when the system moved too slowly to protect their loved ones. These 4 women were not invisible. They had people who loved them, people who searched for them, people who refused to stop asking questions. What failed them was not a lack of evidence. It was the assumption that their lives mattered less because of who they were or how they lived. Every missing person report deserves urgency. Every family's concern deserves to be taken seriously, regardless of background, profession, or neighborhood. When a loved one goes missing, document every detail immediately. Who they left with, what vehicle, what time, and any contact info. If you plan to meet someone from a dating app, share the profile, username, and meeting location with a trusted person before you go every single time. Know the warning signs of online predatory behavior, pressure to meet quickly, offers of cash, requests to move the conversation off the main platform. If you feel police are not responding with urgency, escalate, contact supervisors, local advocates, or organizations that support missing and exploited persons. Support the families and foundations who turn their grief into change, because they are doing the work the system should have done first. Khalil Wheeler Weaver was sentenced to 160 years, but the verdict came too late for Robin, Joanne, Sarah, and Ma. Justice arrived after 4 lives were already gone. Robin's best friend handed police the license plate number within hours of her disappearance. It took investigators a full week to run it. Robin loved to sing and was days from turning 20. Joanne had a friend she called every time she left with a stranger. Sarah danced. Ma was 15, just beginning her life in a new country. They were not just case numbers. They were daughters, sisters, and friends, and they deserved better from the systems built to protect them. Remember their names, share their stories, and when something does not feel right, say something. It can be the difference between life and loss. Joanne had a safety routine she always called a friend before going anywhere with a stranger. That day, someone borrowed her phone. Her routine broke. No one acted quickly. Sarah's family filed a report, and then, when nothing moved fast enough, went out and found her van themselves. Ma Dumbia was 15 years old. A recent immigrant just beginning her life in America. Her disappearance did not spark the urgent response it deserved. The same phone number, the same dating app, the same car. The trail was there, visible, consistent, undeniable, but the dots were not connected in time. The suspect was questioned twice and walked out of the station both times while the pattern continued. It was not detectives who finally caught him. It was Sarah's sister and her friends, sitting inside a police precinct, running their own sting operation. They created a fake profile. They set the trap. They arranged the meeting at a Panera Bread 1 mile away and handed police a suspect ready to be taken in.